Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Ray Bearer, the third book, The Maid and the Crocodile, chapters 20 through 23. In these chapters, well, Sade starts to go through with this salon. I'll be honest, I didn't think we were going to get that far. And it goes about as bad as it's going to go without going, which was the worst option. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm RoShawn.
All right. So, did you see this coming? Because I sure didn't see it coming.
All I could think is, how is she going to get out of this? She cannot go through with this, but I did not expect it to go this way. This is terrible. I mean, I'm so glad that it blew up and she didn't have to do this horrible thing, but this is like the worst way it could have gone. This is terrible.
I will tell you what, I fully thought that she lost her voice because the crocodile did something.
That's what I thought too. I still think that.
Do you still? Okay.
I mean, we didn't get any confirmation. He didn't admit to anything, but I thought for certain that, like, it's got to be, right? What else could it be?
It's like, the only thing that so here's where I went with it after I decided, I don't think that's what happened, is I kind of thought, what if it's that her, you know how Taurasi used to talk about belly song and like the what you're meant to do and the purpose of your life and whatnot. What I had been thinking was, like, basically she can do this when it feels like the right thing to do. But here it is so obviously not safe that her body just won't even let her have access to this ability.
I like that. I like the idea that it is a some sort of self-protection she's not even aware that she has. Because it let her do it for that one guy, but this was going to be so overwhelming and so bad for her. Yeah. That I like the idea of her body and her gift being like, you know what? Yeah. Absolutely not. You may not have the strength.
You can't just back away when you're talking in the middle of a sentence.
A cat came in the room.
She just fucking like went down a well. What just happened? Oh my God.
But yeah, I like the idea that her gift is just like, yeah, no, we're not. This isn't what we're here for. This isn't what your gift is for. So we don't function like that. And this is the very first time she would have ever attempted something like this. So it would be a shock to her to find out, like, there's no way she would know that this is what would happen when you push the limit too far. Yeah. You know? But I suspected it was him. And when she comes back and finds him really sort of in a trance, staring at his floating crocodile mask, I was like, oh, what was he up to? What were you doing over there, sir?
Oh, interesting.
But I don't know. We don't know what he was doing. So it could have been something entirely different, you know?
Yeah.
See, cat.
All right. What would the cat do?
Oh, shit.
What?
She opened the door for herself. I thought I was
going to
look at
her.
But she didn't close it behind her when she left, though.
Listen, you can't have everything, RoShawn.
You really
get
can't.
A little greedy.
All right, I'm going to scoot away for just a second. I'll be right back. Just roll my chair over.
Oh, my God. These cats these days, they don't know how good they got it.
Don't
Cats
they know
don't
that
appreciate anything.
people are eating them right now, eating the dogs and cats.
Oh, what we're not gonna do is anything regarding that.
All right, hang on. Let me close the door.
Lord. I would like to say that RoShawn's views do not represent the views of the Unspoiled podcast. I was just administering a disclaimer.
A little disclaimer.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So all right, let's start from the beginning here, because we open up on chapter 20. It's the day of the salon, and she is actually cleaning and kind of enjoying herself for the first time. And
yeah, she's cleaning the servants' quarters.
Yeah, it's the amenities area, so it feels a lot more like meaningful to do this.
I love this bit. I loved going into each room and seeing what the silk was in the individual room and the descriptions of it. And Simple Hanuni's room has got what she calls, is it rue fog?
Yeah.
Oh,
which she thinks is related to like not being able to see her children anymore. Mm-hmm. The way that she describes this, like I'm gonna read this. I did not know what kind of mother Hanuni had been to her children, but I did know it could not have been easy to have a rich girl's nanny for a parent. Mm-hmm. To watch your mother spend all her daytime caresses on another shinier child, leaving you only with the nightly dregs of her exhaustion.
Yeah. There was a recently a cover of, I want to say, either New York Magazine or the New Yorker, and it's a comic, sort of, right? Like it's not animated, but it's a comic. It's not an actual photograph.
Okay.
And it is the scene is a public park in New York City, and there are children playing, like a little white child like on a swing or a slide, and then there's like a white child in a stroller or with like a little scooter, and then there are two women, and one woman is obviously black, and she has a white child on her lap, and then she has a cell phone, and in the picture of the cell phone is a black child with a graduation outfit on. And then there's another adult woman who is a little bit more ambiguous, might be Latina, and a person I follow on the old TikToks just shared the image and asked people, what do you notice when you look at this? And it was like a lot of comments of people just describing the scene. But clearly what it was, and I think the title of the cover was something like A Mother's Work or something along those lines. But clearly what's happening in the scene is these are women of color who are nannies. And so they're spending their time with these children that aren't theirs, but they have their own children, because you see the one woman sharing a picture of what looks to be like her son who's graduating. And the idea of like, what is it when you're a mother of your own children, but your livelihood is being a mother to someone else's children? Yeah. And what a long-standing tradition we have in this country, especially of Black women raising white children when they have their own children at home. And I had mentioned in another podcast, I think for this book, about asking you about reading The Bluest Eye and how it's like one of my favorite books. Mm-hmm. And in that book, not to spoil it, because I do still want you to read it at some point, but the one of the characters in the book who is not telling the story, but it's her story. Her mother is a domestic for a well-to-do white family in the town they live in. And one of the things that this little girl grapples with is how much different her mother is when she is raising the white child in her care,
Mm.
and how like soft and generous and open she is, and how much she prefers to be in that house. And then she comes home to her own children who are poor and ugly, in quotes, because they're
Right.
poor and they're Black, and how she longs for the mother that the white children are getting versus the mother that she gets, because when her mother gets, it's a lot, dude. This book is fucking devastating. But this little bit about Hanuni made me think of that immediately, like that dynamic of what it's like when you are, because you have to make money to take care of your family. So you haven't abandoned your children. You're doing this work so that they can live and they can eat and they can have a home. But you don't get to be there for them because you have to be there for the people that are paying you. And then the way Mama Dele acts towards Hanuni about how, like, it's not my fault her children don't talk to her anymore, and my family paid her salary and I needed her more. Ugh.
Yeah.
It's saying a lot. It's doing a lot.
It's super gross. Ugh. It's really interesting because the racial dimension isn't here because the story, everybody is Black except for some folks from a distant area where we don't hear from them much, except for what is his name?
Fenric.
He's like the sole representative, I guess, of that area. But that it's so interesting because, like, I grew up, my mom was a working woman, and she wasn't home because she had to be in. And I remember as a kid even being like hyper aware of the fact that she was working to keep to keep us fed and whatnot.
Keep the lights
and
on.
Feeling like guilty for wishing that she was around, like my friends' moms were around, because I knew why she wasn't. And I remember when there was that theme in the 90s of like, oh, the bad dad who doesn't show up to baseball games, like, that whole thing. And I remember as a kid just being like, your dad's working. He has a job. What the fuck? Yeah, he can't come to your stupid baseball game. Get the fuck over it. I had no patience for those storylines because it just felt for me like, guess what? People just don't get to go to everything all the time, dudes. And for me, there was like often a sense when I was in school when people would be like, oh, so your parents are going to be there tonight for like a recital or something. And I'd be like, no, they can't come. They're working. And people would be like, oh, I'm really sorry. And, like, all delicate with me. And I was genuinely like, it's fine. It's a stupid recital. Like, this isn't fun for them to come to. Like, they wouldn't want to come to this, I bet. Like, nobody likes this. I enjoy performing in it because it's just enjoyable, but I doubt sitting in the audience is a good time. And I was just like, I remember being truly kind of mystified at first when people got all like soft with me about it. And then as I like got a little older, I started to realize, oh, they're thinking like, oh, you must feel neglected. And I was like, no, people have shit to do. It's fine. But now I'm kind of like, was that just fucked up that I was so prepared for my parents to not be there that I found it weird other people were distressed about it when I took it for granted? Like, is that a problem? You know what I mean? Like, where you start to turn around and be like, wait.
Yeah. Like, maybe I should have been a little bit more, like, had different feelings about it at the time. And why didn't I have different feelings about it at the time? Yeah, it was very similar for me as well. My mom worked. My mom always worked. I also wasn't like involved in extracurriculars the way you were. So I didn't have like recitals. I never played any kind of team sports. So I didn't have that particular dynamic of being like, oh, my mom can't make it to this thing I'm doing at school because she's working. But I did have the sort of like latchkey kid experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Like coming home alone and like getting myself together after school and like eating and feeding myself and all that kind of shit. But it's a very weird thing that people who have a parent available to them it's very difficult for them to imagine like what it's like when your parent isn't available 24/7 to be at their beck and call when they have like other things they have to do. And you're right, it can be weird for other, like I recall, it's weird because for me generationally in the social economic class that I was raised in, I was not the only latchkey kid that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
But because of where I went to school, like in my neighborhood, there were lots of other kids like me. But when I went to school, we were in the minority, both racially and like economically, because I lived in like a middle class suburban area, just in like apartments that were like less expensive. But I still got to go to like that school.
Gotcha.
So I would like, me and my friends were having a similar experience, but then we would go to school and the other kids were having a very different experience.
Yeah, it was sort of a weird thing because like the area that we lived in was condominiums. And so a lot of the people who lived there made decent money, and there were a lot of like stay-at-home moms. But you know, it was like right around the time where my dad had stopped selling drugs. So we couldn't just easily afford to pay our condo bill every month. And
when stop selling drugs goes wrong.
Why did you stop selling drugs, Father? Don't you care about your family? But yeah, I think about it all the time, just like how many places I have been on the lower end of the spectrum, even in like, you know, this was when we lived in Hamden and New Haven. And that's not necessarily like a high income area, but I was still on the lower tier of things. I feel like I've often in my life just been around people with more money.
You really have. Like your whole experience in California is just completely wild to me. Every time you tell me about it, I'm just like, what?
Yeah, it's very surreal.
Yeah, like I don't have any kind of like real life experience with people with great wealth, not like up close and personal. Definitely not intimately in the way that you have, where like, you know people who had several houses and who vacationed out overseas, and parents were like in the entertainment industry and had like real significant amounts of money. Like I never rubbed shoulders with people like that.
Literally a Bel Air home. I was just like, oh,
you're out here like
we're in Bel Air.
The fucking Fresh Prince and shit.
Yeah, very much so. And always very aware, oh, I don't belong here. I don't go here. Everybody is looking at me. They all know I don't go here. This, she's also cleaning out the shrine area for Unijibula, I think is how you say his name. Mm-hmm. And she's trying, you know, he's just in despair over his arthritis affecting his hands. You guys, this bit with Finrick.
Oh my God, this is so good.
So he's got like barely any property, except for this one area that there's greed grime on this floorboard where he's probably hiding money. Mm-hmm. Finrick had left a life of shoveling sheep dung only to bury himself in a sort of muck that was harder to escape from. He would have to do most of the work himself, but perhaps a clean slate could help him work toward a new, less mercenary imagination. That is a mouthful.
It is. I love this bit. There's a depression that showed that he knelt by that floorboard as often as Onijibola had knelt by his altar.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Very good. Very, very good. We don't care for moths.
We do not care for them.
But we will allow this one time.
I suppose.
Translucent wings, joy moths making shimmering loops in the sunshine. And Sade tries to encourage these moths. She even leaves a little food for them, which she's not even sure if that works. Mm-hmm. But she wants to do something to try to encourage them to multiply so that the amenities would have many nights of golden laughter to come. And that's so beautiful. And you're right. It really does ground us into remembering that this is a place where she started to feel like this could be home for her.
Mm-hmm.
and that she cares about these people, and just walking away from it is not without loss and is not without grief.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm wondering if they're going to like notice this, if they're going
I
to come
hope
back into their
so.
room and be like, it feels different in here. And then realize she cleaned, and start to put that together.
I really hope so. I hope we get that.
Yeah. I'm just kind of in this place where I'm like, I just want it to matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. So then we have the scene where she goes downstairs and I love this. You look resplendent. So do you, madam, I croaked. In truth, we both looked unnatural, as overdone and lurid as the now heavily decorated inn. So what we get here as a hint, but we get confirmation of later, is that people paid ahead of time to be here, and Mama Dele has spent that money.
She sure
already.
has.
And honestly, this dumb bitch, I swear to God, after seeing how sick she got with one person,
how do you
really thought like what?
Like, even if her voice hadn't completely given out and not let her clean a single soul, what made you think she was going to be able to do 20 without any issues? How do you not put this money aside just in fucking case it doesn't go the way you want it to go? I feel like it tells us
desperate.
So, yep, there it is.
Yep.
There it is. And it also makes me question, because we had a whole conversation about Mama Dele eavesdropping over Lord Leal's confessions and wondering about whether or not she was going to be like holding those for currency. But it seems like she was much more interested in the actual currency.
Yeah, I had thought she was going to be a little bit smarter about this, and it seems not. And Mama Dele, she's just not a smart woman.
It doesn't seem like it.
And so we get also a sort of lampshading of the question we were asking last episode as well, of just like, why wouldn't you just book this separately and charge a huge premium and do this one at a time and draw it out and make it an extremely exclusive event? And I'm not entirely satisfied with this explanation.
This idea that people want to hear other people's confessions so they don't feel as bad about their own. Yeah,
I don't really buy it.
I feel also, and I was wondering when I was reading this if my sort of resistance to this was really wrapped up in my own preconceived notions about what confession is, which for me, based on pop culture and the way our society works, and whenever you think of confession, it always seems to be a very solitary thing. Right. So I guess, I mean, there's usually like one person to hear your confession. If you think about a literal like Catholic confession, or like any other times in media where you hear a person finally break down and confess whatever their sins may be, it's usually just like a one-on-one kind of situation. So I wasn't on board with this explanation either. But I left room to think, well, maybe it's just because of the way I think of confession as being a sort of very like not single because there's two people involved, but like a very one-on-one kind of private thing.
Yeah, it really just feels for me like the author wanted there to be a big moment where Mama Dele is embarrassed in front of everybody. And so she needed this to be a group thing, and knew that it kind of didn't really work, but that it was also maybe a little bit more believable because Mama Dele is evidently not that smart, and because she is pretty greedy, and she would just want to get as much as she could right away. And I accept that in as much as Mama Dele isn't working on all cylinders here, clearly. Right. But it really did kind of feel like the author started and had to sort of work her way back
I was curious that because I was thinking about like what my own expectations of the idea of confessional is. I was curious if that, because I'm coming from a very American Western sort of frame. I'm wondering if they're in other cultures, if confession is more of a community event. Because Jordan is writing from a very specific sort of cultural experience,
Right.
and I'm wondering if maybe for her this is like the idea of confessing to the village or to the village elders, like it wouldn't just be a one-on-one kind of situation. But I have no idea if that's the case or not. But I was curious, because otherwise it really does seem a little like this is clearly just a set piece so that, to your point, Mama Deli can have this like sort of mass humiliation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's not, a deal breaker for me or anything, but I did feel like, honestly, I'd rather you didn't address it at all than try and convince me with that explanation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it just doesn't ring true to me. So what happens here is basically Mama Dele starts things off before they go into the room with like, I know people are going to try and steal you away from me, but you aren't going to let them do that. Think about all the kind things I've done for you. You're going to be like my own daughter. And it's just all horseshit. And she knows in her heart it's horseshit. But she's just playing along because she doesn't have anywhere else to go. She keeps reminding herself, know your place.
Yeah.
That's the mantra she's operating with here.
Mama Deli tries to get her to get rid of her cane because
it
doesn't go with the theme.
It's not really on theme. This bitch, I swear to God.
I love a good theme as much as the next person. Don't get me wrong, right? But like, come on.
Let's all get some perspective here for a moment, please. Yeah. This bitch. So they go in there and, it's a big group. They're all blindfolded so that allegedly nobody is going to know who said what. Again, that feels like, well, why are we going to do this group thing if you're also going to be worried about people seeing who said things? It just, all of it doesn't quite hang together for me, especially the idea that these people it's a small, like, social clique, that they're not going to recognize each other's voices.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
And like the explanation for the voices is that, Sade's singing is supposed to drown it out, so you're not able to hear us as clearly. Mm-hmm. What? I beg your pardon?
And it's like, that would make sense if everybody was waiting for Sade to begin singing before they would be willing to start talking, but they just launch into speaking out loud without her singing.
Yep.
So it doesn't feel like it's a real concern to anybody. It's just sort of strange.
Yeah. Also, Dele is here to confess her sins as well.
Yeah. Why is she here?
What is happening?
I didn't understand this either. Yeah. It felt like when we are told she's there, it was a bit of a like shock for me. I never thought that she would play along, and it's maybe just supposed to be evidence of how complicit she is despite all her talk.
Listen, it says Dele, who must have been threatened into attendance. So it's suggested at least that Mama Dele is forcing her to participate, which is why she's not taking it seriously at all.
Perhaps.
Right. You remain unconvinced.
Yeah, just like I don't know. This scene didn't do it for me. I just feel like there is a lot of this that it required too much explanation. And when you start to get into that territory, then it doesn't feel like it really is working, does it? So yeah, this is Mama Dele "Good evening, my friends, and welcome to your redemption."
My God.
And then we have this dude who just can't stop coughing, and she's trying to be dramaful. And
it's the white guy too.
I absolutely cannot with this. And then Dele just keeps chiming in as well, trying to like completely run this off the rails and delighting in how ridiculous she's making it seem. That, I cannot lie, that was very funny to me. Everybody is just like, they're here for sincere reasons, but it does feel like the vibe that Mama Dele is trying to set up, it's a little bit tortured.
It is very much so. Very much so. And again, like the thing about Mama Dele is like, we're saying that, you know, she doesn't seem like she's very smart, but I think the word that you used is the most accurate is desperate. These are the actions of a desperate woman who is willing to do anything to try to regain her lost status. And desperation will have you looking foolish almost every time.
It's true. There's an episode of Frasier where he is complimenting this woman because he is trying to, like, you know, get her attention, and somebody, I think it's Roz, says to him, like, you know, women can smell desperation. And he's like, I'm not desperate. What are you talking about? And then this lady comes back in and he keeps like, oh yes, very funny. What a dry wit you have. Yeah. And as the lady's just sort of like nodding with this expression as she goes out the door, like, Jesus, she closes the door behind her and he just stops and goes, oh God, I reek, don't I?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mama Dele, you reek. You reek, girl. It's not good. Even if this worked, like, I can't imagine what she thought was after seeing the effect that it had on her last time. What it's setting aside the fact that I know you don't actually care about her welfare, but you're worried about saving face. At least. Yeah. So what the hell?
How do you, even if you don't care about Sade's well-being, and we talked about this a little bit with Fenric, talking about like, it doesn't seem to be a sustainable business model. How do you not want to protect your investment? This is like the best thing you have going for you right now. Mm-hmm. And you're just gonna blow your, I think I used this expression last week, so I won't say it again.
You did.
But you're just
and we
gonna
all remember
like, just to, like, you know, waste it all in one attempt. It's just not good sound business practice.
Yeah.
And again, that's putting aside just how monstrous it is that she would subject this little girl to something as horrific as trying to do 20 people, you know, all at once, when you saw the effect of one man's confessions and what that did to her.
Yeah.
And then the setup, which she's got like 10 people to a side and this long like table / trough that they're all sitting at so that they can vomit up their guilt worms into it. And Sade is supposed to dance along the table. And Mama Dele is like, maybe you could sway your hips and swing your arms a little bit, you know, give it a little razzle dazzle. Like, what?
This is unhinged, ma'am. You have got to just let it go. Let go of this like dream that you have. It's not going to happen. It's sad. Stop it.
It's really,
get some help.
It is sad. It really is. And this is how you know that Mama Dele doesn't have any real friends. Because a real friend would have been like, bitch, what are you doing? This is not the way. Let's rethink this. She don't have no real friends.
Let's rethink this. That's real like soft talk for you are an idiot. I love you, but no. So this is when they begin to just speak, and it's not like, again, why would you start when you're worried about this and there's no singing yet? It doesn't.
It's not even time. She's still giving instructions. The poor guy with the cough is like, wait, my blindfold is coming loose and I didn't understand the instructions. Can you tell me one more time? And people just start
nobody is concerned about it. Like it's almost just like, yeah, by the end of this guy's going to be dead anyway. We don't have to worry. You know what I mean? Like, it just feels very, it'll be fine.
Can you imagine if he did just drop dead in the middle of this fucking...
There was part of me that kind of wondered if that was going to be what happened. Like, it set up so much, so heavily that he is not okay. I was like, either he's going to like be very unwell, or he is going to be rejuvenated so completely by this, you know, like one or the other.
I can't
neither, as
imagine the guilt worms that would have come out of him had Sade been able to go through with this. Like, I can't even imagine.
So I asked RoShawn via text if she had done her reading yet. And I said, because I just cackled out loud. And I said, you are going to know the line when you get there. Well, long story short, she did not know the line when she got there. I thought that this meme was something that she would have been familiar with. And maybe once I point it out, you'll be like, oh yeah, that. But so to start off with, there's the first person saying, none of it was my fault. The bomb, the massacre, none of it. And then somebody else, the children were listless before we employed them. We gave them a sense of direction. In truth, they yearned for the mines. You guys, if you're not familiar, there is a meme that went around. It was a screenshot from Twitter.
Excuse me.
In 1920, we took children out of the coal mines. In 2020, the most popular video game on the market is Minecraft. The children yearn for the mines.
No, I don't have a lot of Minecraft content, but that's really funny.
The children yearn for the mines is like now a meme, and that is said in all kinds of different spaces.
That's so fun. No, I haven't encountered that in a while.
She absolutely was making a little funny there, and I just think it is so hilarious that she is like kind of obvious about it, if you know the meme, I mean. And she's done that a few times in this book, and it just feels like she's just winking at us a little bit, just being like, you know what I'm talking about. And she's like, yes, I do.
She's like, yeah, I got the internet too. Oh, that's good stuff. Oh, I'm sorry I didn't get that.
Yeah, it's all right.
That's
hopefully hearing about it secondhand from me was just as great. I hope it was as satisfying as anything. So the music, obviously, her singing doesn't happen. She can't get anything out, and she doesn't understand why. Mama Dele starts to like grab her and try and shake her and get, you know, she begins to raise her hand to slap her. And automatically Sade defends herself.
Yeah.
I deflected the blow, wrenched her wrist until she howled, and shoved her away. I was not sorry, but I had not meant to do it. It had simply been a reflex from my years in the gutter. And she basically is like, I could take name calling, but nobody was going to actually physically fuck with me.
That is some real shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's some real shit. I think I don't know if we've all been there, but I feel like we've all been there. Like, There is, well, one I want to mention, well, two, okay, one is an aside. I'll just mention, like, we've talked about in the past about, like, you know, getting into, you know, a scuffle here and there. And I remember even as a kid, especially in high school, when name calling and teasing and bullying can be some in middle school and into high school can be some at its most intense, never really bothered me. But the minute a person like made a move towards me, I would overreact. I would like overcorrect, which is what she does in this moment. But I also want to mention that as Sade is the people start with their confessions, and she hasn't even started to sing yet. She says that she can't see the worms, but she knows they're there, filling the table, teeming around. And she says, already I felt invaded. A presence flitted through my body like the ghost of a worm I had not yet eaten. And I was like, once her voice goes away, I was like, maybe the presence she felt was something that the crocodile was doing. And it wasn't the worm at all. Like, it wasn't like the, you know, preview of the worm at all.
Right.
But so that little moment stuck out to me. And I was like, maybe that was something different. Maybe the presence she felt wasn't what she thought, because she would know. You know, why would she think it was anything but what's right in front of her? But I don't know if that's going to come to pass or come to mean anything. But yeah, when she,
I'm really curious. Like,
I can't wait to find out.
Yeah, I really don't have an idea on this. I feel like I would rather he didn't do anything, because I want her to have had agency in that moment. But I also feel like if we're doing rom-com tropes, I am growing closer to you and relying on you and falling for you, and then I find out the truth about something you did that I can't forgive. That feels like we're going to find that out later on, after they get closer through her living with him, and it's going to be a big thing. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's going to be a betrayal. It's going to be the betrayal. But yeah, so she fucking grabs that arm and pushes Mama Deli back, and it's just like, whoops.
I swear to God. I was so proud of her. I never expected her to actually stand up for herself physically like that. That really caught me off guard.
Listen,
so
when she says that Mama Deli looked at her with pure frothing hatred, and Sade says, I wish then that she had tried to hit me earlier. Man, listen. Very satisfying.
Yes.
Very, very satisfying. Yeah. And she's just like, yeah, if she had just done this earlier, I would have known that none of this was going to work. I would have known that this was never going to be my home. And I could have, like, saved myself this particular disappointment, humiliation. Humiliation was the first word I was going for. So, yeah, thank you. But, you know, and she says, I just would have not wasted my time hoping for a different life. I would have known from the gate that this was not going to be for me.
Yeah.
So Dele also, by the way, has taken her blindfold off immediately and is just watching everybody confess.
I love it so much.
And she confesses to her love, names Yeon, says she owns the flower shop. She's only a commoner, but then so am I. We have no title despite my mother's attempt to make the world forget it. Shots fucking fired.
Yeah. She just said it.
Listen, we knew that cleaning Dele's room was going to do something. It was going to free her up in some way. We just weren't sure what it was going to look like and what action she was going to take on it. And I guess here we have it.
Here it is.
Here it is.
Worth it.
And this turns out to really bite Mama Deli in the ass, because when she needs this man to co-sign the fact that Sade is the real deal, he's too fucking salty to do it.
I didn't see that coming. I should have, but I didn't. I very much was still functioning under the like, yeah, well, you've got like insurance here, you know, and no,
nope,
turns out she
sure don't.
So embarrassing.
So yeah, so now the room is freaking out. Everybody is like, she's not singing. People are like, how do we know people covered their eyes when we confess? Maybe someone peeked. People could have been listening. I don't even think these two were ever even wearing blindfolds. Mama Deli is still trying to tell everybody to shut up. It's not even time to start yet.
She's really trying to keep control of this situation. And it's like, the whole thing is just, it gets more and more embarrassing the more she clings.
Yeah. This fucking train is out of the station. And she keeps telling everybody that this is a sacred space.
Honey.
Is it a sacred space, Mama Deli?
Just because you're about to get money out of it doesn't make it sacred. I know that's hard for you to process, but we are not all on the same page with this, I promise you.
I'm surprised there wasn't more greed grime in her room.
True. Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like she does want money, but the money is like secondary to the money's the means to getting her position back, and that's the thing more, I guess. Yeah, I
think you're right about that.
So this is when everybody starts to ask for their money back, and she throws Sade to the wolves being her guests.
Without a fucking hesitation.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Just immediately, like, it's her, she lied to me, she set this all up, and understandably Sade is like, and that's a wrap, and she just runs.
Not only does she blame Sade for calling her a thief, saying she tricked me, she also says she's cursed, and then she's like, she's bewitched my daughter, because why else would Deli confess to such a thing? Like, she's throwing everything on Sade. Everything. And then the room all turns and focuses on Sade. Like, bitch, okay, where's our money?
Like, she's going to actually have it. You guys cannot be falling for this.
This is what I'm saying. They can't be buying this, right? And Deli jumps up and is like, Small Sade didn't steal anything, and I'm telling the truth. Why are you listening to my mother? For fuck's sake. Like, anybody here with half a brain, stop and think, she actually says. But no one is listening to Deli at all. Yeah. They are all yelling for Sade to be arrested, to call the guard, call the judges, call the anointed ones. And as soon as they say call the anointed ones, you know that was the last fucking straw for our girl.
Yeah. And it's such a shame because, like we have already seen and heard, they would have been on her side.
Yep.
If they heard what Mama Dele had been about to do with her, they would have not been pleased to hear. Mm-hmm. So I understand her running and I know her baggage, but also that was a mistake, girl. You could have had some help.
Yeah. And I think, does he say it to her a second time that, oh no, I'm thinking of the last chapter when, the crocodile tells her how the Ray Bears would have been on her side and would never have let anything happen to her.
Yeah.
So she leaves. She runs out into the rain, and she's trailing all this gold dust because she's been all like made up and covered in gold.
I do really enjoy that. And then she starts playing this game that her and her mother used to play called At Least. I loved this so much. I just loved it so much because the it was always just, at least we stink so bad the mosquitoes could not bear to bite us. Don't worry, Mama. At least no lions will chase after us. Our bellies are so empty the growling will scare them all away. At least we will save money on cocoa butter. We are so sweaty, our elbows will never be ashy again. At least the weather is so bad the streets have no thieves or scouts for pleasure bazaars. At least if a thief cornered me, they would have nothing to steal. At least after tonight, Mama Dele will sully my reputation so completely, I will never have to work for a rich family in the Ilioba district ever again. As a child, I had thought the point of the game was to cheer up, to focus on the bright side no matter the situation. That, after all, is what the Mercy Aunties always told me to do. But as the storm soaked my wrapper, I knew my mother had not played, at least, to soften our pain, but to honor it. She had taught me to yowl our trials out loud instead of hiding them like something shameful. We aired our dirty laundry in the public sunshine of humor.
I really love that.
This is exactly... Guys, I've said this on other shows, so forgive me if I am repeating myself here. But nothing gets me irritated quite like people who take pride in the fact that they never complain or who criticize other people for complaining. In my opinion, that's asinine.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense, and trying to pretend that you don't have troubles doesn't actually make them go away. And in fact, it closes you off to the possibility of relating to other people on that level as well. So it makes you more isolated in your pain than you might be if you decided to voice it and share it. And there's different ways of complaining, granted. And there are ways of complaining that are not productive or helpful or particularly like what I enjoy about the right kind of complaining is this sort of thing where you make a joke.
Exactly.
You take a moment to step back and like the thing that I think of a lot, because Owen was very much not in the same headspace as me at the time, is the time where we came home and we found that Sam had ripped open one of our feather pillows. And there was just a cloud of
I remember that
over every surface in our home. And it was a horrible mess. And cleaning it up was a huge pain. But also, I was laughing so hard the whole time because it was ridiculous. It was so... Like, we couldn't use a broom because the feathers just flutter. Owen had to go and get a fucking snow shovel. And we had to find this thing that he uses at work to, like, hold garbage bags open and slowly tip the feathers off the snow shovel into this. It was hilarious. And that's the thing. When you step back and you look at things and you're like, oh, God, like, I'm mad. I hate this, but also, come on now.
Yeah,
this is pure gold. Like, this is absurd how bad this is.
And
I love it.
The thing, too, the things that she gives an example that her and her mother play the At Least game about are their circumstances, which are really kind of outside of their control. So, like, the idea that really what it is that they are very poor, right? They don't have the things they need to take care of themselves in a way that leads to being healthy and happy and safe. And the idea that you should be ashamed of your poverty. Why? You know, that you should suffer silently because it's too embarrassing. It's too shameful to admit out loud. And so I love this idea of being like, this is these particular things that they're complaining about, these circumstances that have happened to us, are just that. They're just the circumstances we're in. They're not indications that we are inherently less than and should be ashamed and quiet about it. And to your point about the suffering in silence and not complaining and being isolating, that's exactly what it does. And when you learn that lesson young, it is so damaging as you grow, the idea that you don't get to remark upon your unfortunate circumstances, you know, that you have to keep that in at all times, because that is just a recipe for fucking disaster.
Indeed. Yeah, I know that like there have been times in my life where I have rubbed people the wrong way because of complaining. And I just really look at that as a you problem. I'm not trying to complain to like, and I'm not trying to act like I've always been perfect about it. I'm sure that there have been times where I was not complaining productively, like, sure.
Well,
but I really do try to make things a sort of like, can we all acknowledge this sucks? Can we all step back for a moment and just look at how bullshit this all is as a group and appreciate together that we all know what nonsense we're living through right now, or whatever, like.
And in the sharing, we give each other the opportunity to help when and where and how we can. When you share that you're struggling with a particular thing, there might be somebody out there who has been through that thing and can help you navigate it, as you go through it. Or if it's like a practical problem, they might have a practical solution. Exactly. It's just like, and again, like, I am not quite as open as you are with everyone, that's my own shit that I'm still trying to work through, but I've gotten a little bit better. I think maybe.
I think, yeah, I would say so.
With being a little bit more open about like the things that I'm going through and the things that I struggle with and the things that are just that make life fucking hard, The at least game is tricky for me. I like the way it's presented here, and I think this is probably a little too personal for the podcast, but I like it.
No such thing.
Because I personally have a history of having at least being weaponized against me. So I might be struggling with a thing, and then someone in my life would say, well, at least it's not as bad as this thing, so what are you upset about, having it turned around. And so I really, really, really appreciated the framing of at least in this game kind of way, because it's just kind of a way to turn it around a little bit. So I might be using this for myself going forward.
So she heads right over to Bekhina House and steps inside. The roar of the storm ceases. I stood now beneath a clear, serene purple sky quilted with twinkling stars. The night air was warm and tasted of mango blossoms. If I had thought the crocodile's villa unnaturally quiet before, it seemed even more so now. For in Uluwan, night is when creatures come alive. But though it lacked the click of cicadas or throaty coo of wood owls, the Bekhina House courtyard glowed with cheer. Flickering lanterns crowded on every surface, the well, the windowsills, even the benches and tops of barrels. Green silk streamers hung in festoons across the yard. Even the crocodile mask, which floated in midair above the well, had been trimmed with ribbons. At my entrance, Clemé did joy loops on a nearby wall. And is this evidence that he took her voice away? Well, the fact that this place is all done up, like...
He seems very much to be expecting her, right?
Yeah.
And we know that he had been imploring her not to do this, and he had been begging her to come to the house. So there is sort of plausible deniability that he was just hoping she would change her mind at the last minute and come to him. And maybe he wasn't actually an active participant in what happened. But also... I say.
Yeah, I do too. Well, she doesn't seem to think anything is amiss here. So he comes over to her, gives her his robe because she's shivering. You came. I was beginning to think you wouldn't, even when the storm grew teeth. Yeah, that's really sounding like
I don't know, right? I don't know.
I don't like this. He tries to give her some meat pies and she doesn't want to accept anything from him. And I was so confused. And I completely had forgotten that they haven't spoken since she had found out that he was a Ray Bear. Well, he's not a Ray Bear. He's an anointed one.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, why is she being like this? And then I was like, oh yeah, they haven't even like talked this through yet. Oh no.
Yeah. She also has one of these and she found one when she's coming into the house, but there's like a little carcass, I guess, left on her of these spies from Ixalix, the little dragonflies with the human eyes.
She just killed that thing.
And he sees it on her shoulder, and he's like, I see Ixalix has been keeping tabs on you. Well, don't worry. Lodestone travel confuses her weakest spies, so they're unlikely to follow you here. But I was like, it did follow her here.
Yeah, I guess that she killed it on her way to the Lodestone, though, right? If I'm not mistaken.
When did she? I can't remember when she sees it.
Yeah, I feel like she does, and so it's dead, like when she travels.
Oh, okay.
And eventually, when she's like, "Oh, I don't even eat meat," ha, you can't make me eat your little meat pies. He shows her this other sort of it's called a pudding, but I thought it was going to be sweet, but it is not. It is a savory bean stew. And because he can feel everything she's feeling, her reaction to seeing this is to her mouth to start watering. And he's like, my mouth just flooded with drool, so I'm going to guess that I'm on the right track with this one. And I was like, I can't imagine how unpleasant it would be to not be hungry and then suddenly have my mouth be filled with drool. No, thank you. I would rather not. I don't like it at all. And
she's being so formal after she's done eating. She's just like, okay, so in exchange for my keep, I need to be cleaning this or doing that. And he's just like, what are you doing? You know, you're not here as my maid. Would you please forget?
Can't we be as we were before?
Yep. I'm not your boss.
When I did not know your name, did not know you were an anointed one.
What difference does it make? The world believes me to be dead. I rule over nothing. And even if I did, you know I would not hurt you, he says. He still does not get where she's coming from with her genuine, reasonable, not just fear, but acknowledgement of the power dynamic of what it is to be, in her words, an ant to a giant.
Yeah, it's really frustrating that he doesn't get it. And, this is just how it can work, especially with people who have always had a certain kind of power and have been blissfully unaware of that fact, is they just feel like I'm saying it shouldn't matter, so it doesn't.
Yeah,
if only that were how it worked. That'd be great. But...
And I love that she brings up Sanjeet. She says, Sanjeet didn't mean to hurt me either. And technically, Sanjeet didn't do anything to her. But her interaction with him and how it went bad ruined her life.
Yeah.
Right. And she's trying to explain to him, don't you understand? He didn't mean to do anything to me. No more than a giant means to crush an ant. But don't you get it? It doesn't matter what we want. We were born on opposite ends of the mill. You will always be the hammer and I the pulp pressed into paper. I mean,
rough.
Yeah. And he just goes into what she describes as a stream of protests, which washed over my head without seeping into my ears. And the whole time he's going on and on, there's only bits of words coming out to her. She watched his lips, absently admiring their dark fullness as he shaped words like revolution and equality and inherent worth of every soul, regardless of the state of the... She's not listening to any of this bullshit.
Oh my God. She truly has no time for this whatsoever. She's just like, I'm going to let him get this out of his system so we can get back to talking about how I'm going to earn my keep. Mm-hmm. Let me just wait until this is over.
Yeah. She says that his beauty seems less dangerous now because he felt less real. I thought that was quite a line.
Yeah.
I observed him as I would a statue on a turret high above me on the lofty domes. Yeah, like she no longer sees him as a... Like, it's weird because initially she was seeing him as a god, and that you would think was a pretty fucking big deal. But now that she knows he's an anointed one, she sees him as even less like human.
Yeah.
Like, they just occupy, the anointed ones, I mean, just occupy a space in her imagination that is so high above her to not even be like real people.
I guess it makes sense. They have crazy abilities. She does too, though, and she's like, she doesn't really seem to think so.
She doesn't seem to think that her abilities elevate her at all.
Yeah. It's weird.
Mm-hmm. And she seems not as interested on why her face is on that tapestry. I need her to be way more interested in that.
I agree. Yes. Definitely agree. So yeah, I waited until he had tired himself out. She asks where she's going to sleep and, you know, emphasizes I need good sleep so that I can clean in the morning. And he tells her about how this was Terasai's house, which she already knew, I thought, but she reacts here kind of like she didn't know. She knows I'm here, I asked in a panic. Immediately, I imagined the walls growing porous with eyes.
I don't think she knew.
I thought that was mentioned in the backstory she was given by Ixalix.
Oh.
You know?
Maybe.
I may be wrong. But
it was that was a big dump. You're right. It might have been in there. Oh my God. Ew. God. Info dump. It was a big info dump. Jesus Christ. Fuck's sake. That's it. Podcast
Why
over.
would you do that?
I don't know what happened. Just,
oh my God. Yeah, that was a big dump.
Oh.
Christ's sake, RoShawn.
And you know,
trying to have an adult podcast here.
You know, of all the silliness that I engage in, that particular type of silliness is not my jam. So you have to understand that was my bad.
Oh Lord. So he also like has gone to a great amount of trouble again, like he was expecting her, to first explain, like, you know, she's thinking, you must understand the circles. When I grew up, just as the phrase Sanjit of Dharma scared children into good behavior, the words Tarasai Idajos scared everyone into keeping their thoughts virtuous. We avoided thinking of the worst things we had done, lest the Adagio peek into our minds and ride from the palace on her crystal-horned underworld beast, spear poised to dispense the justice that was her namesake. She does not know that you are here. She cannot read your mind without touching you, and even then she mainly looks at what you want to show her. She would not mind that you are here. The Boss Almighty's childhood was isolated, to put it mildly, and she has little interest in seeing this place ever again. And she asks about, like, well, what about the servants? And he's like, there are no servants, so that's not something you need to worry about. And she's like, but the place is so clean. How is that even possible? I have noticed that while animals can come here, they generally choose not to, even the insects. When the lady forced at Alagbato to build this place, she stipulated that she must always be safe. That included, among other things, an invisible barrier, allowing only creatures she approved to sense the villa's existence. The villa is visible to most now, as that part of the enchantment wore off when the lady died, but I think animals can sense the villa does not want to be seen. Perhaps they avoid it out of politeness. Polite roaches? I said dubiously. Are those any less likely than girl-eating gods? Much less, I deadpanned, especially in this infested neighborhood. She said he's infesting the neighborhood. I love it. Good for you, girl. Get it. So yeah, anyway, what he shows her then the room she's going to stay in. The ceiling is an illusion. I made it because of your difficulty sleeping in tall buildings. If it disturbs you, I can change it. I entered the bedchamber and looked up. He had turned the ceiling into a replica of the night sky.
Yeah.
And it's just this like incredible, and he says, "What do you think?" And she says, "I think this is too fine for a maid."
Yeah.
He was quiet for so long I wondered if I had hurt his feelings. Then he said, with a passion that unnerved me, "The world has hampered your potential, but that ends tonight. Now that you are rid of that horrible salon, it is the dawn of a new age, a new Sade."
Yeah.
"I am tired, Olga. May I have my prayer stone back?" And he gives it to her.
Yeah.
I kind of thought he might not, but...
She also notices that the scales have increased on his arm as well.
Yes.
As he's been doing all this magic to prepare this place for her sort of homecoming and this illusion of the sky in her room. And who knows what else he's been up to. I say that because I'm still not entirely certain exactly what his part was. But she notices that there's scales that now cover his arm that weren't there before. And he makes her spit that pebble out as soon as she gets there.
Yeah.
And then he just sends it back to her, floats it back to her. And she takes it and closes the door. And then she takes the bedroll off of its frame and puts it on the floor.
The apparently sleeping in a bed, also too good for her.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's very, very, very consumed with this idea of not getting ahead of herself, of thinking above her station. Like, it's such a trap for her. Like, she can't let herself for a second think that she deserves anything but, like, the very, very least. To get anything more is just dangerous. And imagine living your life like that. Like,
my girl.
Like that feeling of just not being deserving of anything good or better than what you already have, which is something that, like, I know a lot of people struggle with. I've struggled with that feeling of just like, this is it. This is the best that you can hope for. And how dare you think of better or think that you deserve more. And then having people around you trying to convince you that you should be thinking bigger, or asking for more. But all of your life evidence shows you that is like, why would I do that?
It's a bad idea. Yeah. So she sleeps, wakes up, and she has these beautiful clothes that she is going to try on. And she's like, as she's like getting into this, she's thinking about finding a new job. I could still be Sade of Oluwan City until your employer blames you for something that is not your fault. The thought pierced me as though I had stepped barefoot on a pottery shard. I recoiled, and when I tried to think of working for another madam, a new hot sensation thrummed through my body. Rage. The sensation was not truly new, not entirely, but I had worked for years to keep it in check. Even now, I summoned all the phrases I had kept close since leaving Yorua village, flinging them like water to dampen the burning coals in my chest. There will always be maids and masters, ants and giants. It is the way of the world. The only pain comes from expecting more. All will be well so long as you keep small and know your place. only knowing my place at the Bologun Inn had not mattered, had it? Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. That's this is the more I read, the further along in this book we get, the more Small Sade resonates with me, just because of where I happen to be personally in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it just is really hitting me in some of my softest places. And when she talks about this feeling of rage, but how she's worked for years to keep it really suppressed, to keep it in check, and just like when it comes out, it's like you don't know what to do with it, so you got to push it back down again. Because to experience it and to feel it and to act on it or change your life because of it can be so overwhelming. And when she talks about how quickly Mama Deli had turned on her, and not just her, on Small Sade, because she says how she would turn on Onijibola once she learned it, that there was no more use for him. She would throw him out on the street, like back to that.
Yeah.
But then she goes, but I hadn't known my place. Remember, I struck her. So she's like that quick. Like that's how she tries
rationalizes
to tries to get the rage to go away by making it back on her fault. Like, don't be mad at Mama Dele, it was my fault. But then the voice is like, but you only did it because she was about to hit you. And she is trying to convince herself that she deserved to be hit, and she can't do it.
Yeah.
She can't do it. It says, I had too much of Fola in me for that. Too much of the woman who would rather give birth in the bush, sprouting a garden of life in the wilderness, than to accept the looming shelter of a balled fist. Yeah.
So she gets dressed and is laughing at just how incredible the clothing is that there is to choose from. And really is like, this is too much, but she can't help. And I love this line. It might surprise you to know that I am fond of pretty things.
I love this.
Some make a tiresome show of disdaining them, but sweeping gowns and shining wrappers make me sigh in the same way that sunsets and birdsong do. I have never had the patience to pretend otherwise.
I love that so much.
Same.
And it was so unexpected for some reason. Like, I didn't think that she would really get joy from, I didn't think she would allow herself to get joy from things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I really love that that's there, and it's like a little confession from her to us,
Yes.
I just really enjoyed that.
I love it, especially because like there are so many stories with a girl protagonist who isn't meant to like care about that stuff.
Yes.
And there are times where it feels like legitimate in terms of their character, like Katniss. I buy it. But then there are times where I'm just like, you're just trying to be not like other girls right now, and it's boring, and it's not like, and I love beauty so much that reading those perspectives always made me fucking crazy, because they'd be like, I don't need all this, I'd rather just wear my jeans. Bitch, shut the fuck up
and put that gown
cares.
on.
Put the fucking $6,000 Oscar de la Renta silk gown on and shut your mouth. Everybody would kill to be in the position you are in right now. I don't want to hear about how you felt so uncomfortable and just wished that you could put on your Birkenstocks again. I'm looking at you, Bella Swan.
I knew that's who you were thinking about.
I just get so annoyed whenever, especially it's always like some character who is suddenly in the life of a person with tons of money, and how they just really don't want the things that person can provide them with now. And I just have no fucking patience for it.
Call
Fine,
them bullshit. Call them bullshit.
Then, if you don't want it, I'll take it. I'm tired of listening to you though. Like, enough already. So yeah, I really, it's just like also the whole like the way in which women aren't supposed to like want in general frustrates me.
Oh,
anyway.
yeah.
And like, it's the same thing that I get with like, oh, they're just doing it for attention. Whenever that line is used, I'm always just like, so?
Yep.
Why wouldn't you want to? Everybody wants attention. We want it differently. I want to be, it's like RoShawn and I going to the Beyonce concert. RoShawn wore a hot ass outfit that went mostly unremarked, and that's exactly what she wanted.
That is correct.
And I wore basically a costume and got stopped constantly. And that is exactly what I wanted. We both looked great. We both went for it and really paid attention to what we were wearing and planned it out.
Was so happy with each one. Like, it was exactly what we wanted to be wearing, and got exactly the reaction that we were both going for.
Exactly. So I just, I really resent the whole, like, oh, they want attention, as if this, like, dismissing it, like it doesn't count. Attention is like the point. Let's be real about being people. Human beings are social. A lot of stuff is about attention.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's fine. Let's all just keep things in proportion, and then we'll be okay. I don't know, guys. Yeah. I get irritated.
And the thing too, to your point about the way women characters are written and how women are treated in real life too, is that whole like not like other girls, and I just want to be like in my comfy pants, which is fine. I like comfy pants as much as the next person, but really what they're doing is like trying to create like a shortcut or a shorthand for like a judgment on the value of that particular woman. Oh, if she likes it, then she's somehow less than. She's not as good as. She's not as she's somehow shallow and vapid, and all of these other attributes that get sort of bundled into that line about, oh, I would just rather be in a pair of cutoff shorts and flip flops. I'm that whole thing, because I'm a real girl.
I'm down to earth, unlike these other bitches who are so preoccupied.
Yeah, I'm low maintenance.
Low maintenance, the ultimate compliment. We used to think everybody be high maintenance. Go ahead, do it.
The years I spent being low maintenance, fucking regret. And for what? I regret. I should have been much higher maintenance. I worth being much higher maintenance.
Yeah. Agreed. So she puts this on. Her hair is a mess, so she has to like
that
try to fix it up.
That killed me. She has been walking all night in the rain and shit, so she went to bed without wrapping her hair. She didn't put no bonnet on or nothing, and just went to bed.
And I love it. She's fixing her hair and stuff. You are not, I told myself as I braided the cloth, trying to look attractive for the crocodile. But I lingered at the mirror. So she gets in this lovely outfit and she goes to see him, and is like, apparently he is still asleep, and she's just sort of like, huh. And she makes her way down this hall. I love this so much. I had not relieved myself since leaving the Bologun Inn, and my bladder was near to bursting. There had been a chamber pot in my room, but the thought of running into the crocodile at the crack of dawn while carrying a sloshing pot had mortified me so much I had not used it. And I was like, ooh, yeah, that would be I get it. I can't help but think that like this house would empty it out for her.
Same, right?
I feel like that's probably in the fine print somewhere.
Right, and when she goes to the outhouse, and she has a similar thought, like, huh, it's awfully clean in here, and it doesn't seem to be any kind of stench at all. I wonder if the house just takes care of it.
It's appreciated house. We love you. And eventually, when she goes to see him, there's all of these like jugs of wine, and is just like, wait, really? They're empty, but it's clear like he's been drinking it all, and she's like, yikes, dude.
Yeah. He is living with just like a plethora of these empty jugs strewn about the room, and like she opens the door and she can smell it, and she's looking at all of the jugs and she's like, but he's only been here a year. He couldn't have possibly drunk all of this alone. And then Cleme makes this noise.
Cleme is like, the fuck he couldn't have.
Cleme, by the by, let's just give him a little shout out. He is
creature.
Fucking delightful. And I feel like he's growing as a character, even though his vocabulary is not. Like, he's still just making the same like two sounds he makes, but his ability to communicate seems to be growing. Or her understanding of him, I guess, is really what's happening. Like, her ability to communicate with him and understand what he's doing and saying and what he means is growing. And I just love every second of it.
Agreed. Yeah. He it's funny because he's like meant to keep him safe. And so he's doing that, but there's also a sense of like, I'm going to keep him safe. And part of that is from his own stupid ass. So I have some judgment about it.
And he also seems to really, really love Sade. There's a line, I don't know where it is, and I don't know if it's at the very beginning, but he does like a little dance when she shows up. Like, he's so excited to see her. He does like a little loopy dance. And I was just like, that's the cutest fucking thing ever.
So she goes into the room and the crocodile is asleep, and there's all these papers around him. And when she picks one up, it's like the wanted posters from when he was, and she's just like, why? I thought he is like focusing on leaving that shit behind. And here he is wallowing in it. What is this about? And the way that she's like looking at the clock and the fact that he's still asleep, she's thinking like, he made a lot of noises about here it is. Despite his grand speech the night before, the crocodile's plans to make a new Sade did not appear to involve him getting out of bed before noon. But eventually, Cleme goes and wakes him up, sticking his tongue in his ear. I just want to mention, y'all know that I have recently, Owen and I have adopted a kitten. And this kitten, first of all, wants to knead dough on my actual face. I don't know why.
She does it on your face?
On my face.
There's a woman who posts on Instagram and it ends up everywhere else. And her cat needs her face. That cat be going to town.
Oh my God.
On her face.
I have to put a blanket over my face. And she goes and kneads it and sucks on the blanket because she, she like was taken from her mom too early, or she was abandoned. So she's just sucking on that blanket. So I have this like damp blanket on me. It is not awesome. But there was one day where she's kneading and she's trying to suck on the blanket, and this cat shoved her entire little cat tongue into my mouth.
Oh,
and it was the worst way to wake up, you guys. It was so weird. Cat tongues are so scratchy, and it was like on my lip, and it was so weird. I just like almost hit the ceiling. I was like, Jesus Christ! I think I scared her, but she hasn't done it since, so maybe that's
Thank
good.
God.
But yeah, it was very, very uncomfortable. I did not care for it, and it was like she did it once a little, and I was asleep, and so I kind of woke and was like, "What is that?" And then she did it again, like the whole thing, and that was when I was like, "Oh God!" So it wasn't like she wasn't aiming for my mouth and she slipped. She was like going for my mouth.
Oh Jesus!
For
Christ.
some reason, and yeah,
and cat's mouths, no bueno.
Yeah, nah,
that is no good.
Dislike.
I thought for sure that story was going to end up with her like it's your eye or your ear or something, or up your nose.
Nope. So this when he wakes up, Crocodile like does this like sweet little chit chat with Cleme as he feeds him breakfast, and then talks about how like eventually when I'm a mindless animal, we can go hunting for things together. And I was just like, dude, don't talk about it like that.
Yeah.
But then he goes, unless of course Sade decides to save us. My breath caught at the sound of my name. When he said it, his voice grew low and warm, as though he had dipped each syllable in honey and savored every bite.
You ever have somebody say your name like that? Girl.
No.
It is.
I have not.
It is something. I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have.
Maybe in distant memory. Usually when people are using that kind of voice, they aren't using your name.
That's fair.
You know what I'm saying?
That's fair.
But there's a whole series of like TikToks of compilations of women who call their husbands out by name, and their husbands just stop and turn slowly and
yes,
go, what did you just call me?
Yes, I've seen those.
They just never do that. I love that. But he can tell that she's hungry, and he's commenting on this and how they need to buy more food, and she startles the hell out of him, saying that she can cook for herself. He like hits the ceiling himself, and is very approving of her appearance in this outfit that he had put aside for her.
Yeah.
One of them.
Yeah. I want to mention before we go a little bit further, the other thing that he says to Cleme before he realizes that Sade is there. He says, the girl with worlds on her skin. I didn't think it possible before, but if she is as powerful as she is stubborn, she might break my curse out of sheer spite.
It's a good line.
Yeah.
So they have this talk about the fact that there's no food in the house. There's no larder. He doesn't know how to cook and just goes and gets a mango when he wants one.
Disgusted.
Yeah. This is what it was like moving into Owens. This boy had cans of chili, frozen burritos, boxes of saltine crackers. I came down here in December and he had a cupboard full of Halloween popcorn balls. And that was the extent of the food in the house. And I really had to start from scratch. I really did.
Oh my God.
But this chapter ends with, do you mean to tell me that in the year since you returned from the dead, a year in which you had the power to read anything and go anywhere, you have not learned a skill as simple as frying an egg? The crocodile's dark eyes glittered. You are angry with me, he observed in fascination. That is good, much better than bowing and scraping and calling me Oga. You should be angry. No, furious at anyone remotely like me. Didn't I tell you I was useless? I opened my mouth, closed it. Then, once my blood had stopped boiling long enough for me to speak, I smiled and said through gritted teeth, Get dressed, Oga, and bring your purse. We are going shopping. And that is the end of the chapter. Delightful.
Oh yeah, it's very good. I can't wait to see where this goes now. I want to know, and I'm sure we'll get like some fallout from what happened at the salon and hear back about the amenities and what's going on with them. Find out what happened with her voice. But this little, as you phrased it earlier, rom-com sort of bit that's happening between her and the crocodile, I am so here for them. I can't wait to see them at the grocery store or at the market or whatever the deal is. Like, yeah. And this sort of confession, that this quiet moment that he's having with Cleme before he realizes that Small Sade is in the room, where he's remarking on her ability to cure him. Like, we need to get into what's going on with her. Like, we're about halfway through the book now. I'm ready for us to start getting into it. Like,
Agree.
you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I want to know things, please. Let's do it.
But yeah, I enjoyed these chapters. I'm so happy that the salon blew up because I really did not want to see her go through that. It sounded like it was going to be torture, and I didn't want to watch her be tortured. So I was like, thank fucking God, because I did not want to see that. And those people didn't deserve it, quite frankly.
No, absolutely did not.
So I didn't want to see Mama Deli prosper on that. I didn't want to see those people get any kind of absolution, especially after the way Lord Liao responded to his, where it was very clear that it wasn't about changing who he was or not doing those bad acts anymore. He was going to go out and keep doing the same shit and just come and get a spiritual cleansing every time he got too dirty. Like, absolutely not. So I'm glad that got nipped in the bud before it turned into a whole thing, even though it was quite traumatic for Small Sade. I'm glad that it fucking
poor Sade.
I'm really, really glad that it didn't happen because I just couldn't imagine reading a chapter of her doing that for all of those people.
That was the thing that I was just dreading having to like sit through that in the book. So thank God.
Yeah. It's a good call on Jordan for being like, nah, that's not what we're here for.
Yeah, very much appreciated. Real quick, I want to say hi to Holly Vickers, who is the newest patron. Thank you very much, Holly, for joining up and supporting the show. And just really, I hope that everybody who signs up knows how important you are and how you are keeping the lights on here and helping RoShawn to like keep her mother in an apartment nearby and helping me to like just be able to continue doing the show and living. Not have to take a goddamn horrible job that I hate and try and also do this on the side, because even if I had to get a real job, I wouldn't stop doing this too. So that would be very hard.
God, do you remember when we used to record and you were working
every day?
Oh my God. Yeah.
It was so difficult. You guys don't even know. It was hard. And then we made it work barely, but it was a real, yeah. But yeah, thank you very much. And I just, if you are at all considering it, go check it out. Patreon.com/unspoiled. You can pledge all different kinds of amounts. You can also go and be a member for free and just get access to like announcements and stuff, which I'm posting there and not like, I'm also still posting on the socials, but it's just so unlikely that people see stuff on the socials that it's not really like efficient. Yeah. So if you really want to stay on top of info and stuff, that it's Patreon is the place to go. I'm trying to think of myself less as a like podcaster who's also on Patreon and more of like a Patreon creator now that also puts some stuff out for free. But yeah, anyway, thank you again, everyone. We love you so much. I hope that y'all have been enjoying our coverage of this book. It's been super fun to read.
It has.
And RoShawn and I will be starting Supernatural pretty shortly. Yep. So stay tuned for that, everybody. And until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.